I did not raise my voice. I did not draw a blade. I only spoke the truth. And everything I loved was marked for ruin. Life at court moved with rehearsed grace. Morning bells, heavy doors, faces trained to smile without warmth. I learned early how to bow without yielding, how to listen without believing. Blood decided everything here, who was cherished, who was tolerated, who was erased. Love was permitted only when it obeyed lineage. Anything else was called betrayal. I walked those marble corridors believing silence was safety, believing family was protection, believing power could be merciful. I was wrong, because in a kingdom built on inheritance, truth is the most dangerous heir of all. I was born into silence before I ever learned the weight of words. The palace taught me that early. Stone corridors do not echo unless they are listening. Tapestries do not merely adorn walls, they watch. Every candle flame bends towards secrets long before it yields to wind. From my earliest memory, I understood that truth was never free. It had a cost, and blood was often the currency. I am the second son of a king whose name still commands reverence in distant valleys and fear in closer rooms. My elder brother was born beneath bells and prophecy. I was born beneath rain. No herald announced my arrival. No council gathered. My mother held me alone, and when she pressed her lips to my brow, her tears were warm, deliberate, as if she already mourned what I would become. Palace life was ritual and repetition. Dawn prayers, midday councils, evenings heavy with wine and unspoken rivalries. I learned to walk quietly, to listen without appearing to hear, to smile without offering my heart. Love, I was told, was a weakness best reserved for poets and graves. Yet even within stone, something fragile learned to breathe. Her name was Elira. She arrived as a ward from a lesser house, sent to court to ensure her family's obedience. They dressed her in silk to disguise the fact that she was a hostage. I saw her first in the south garden, kneeling to retie a broken rose trellis with bare hands. Blood stained the petals where thorns had bitten her. She did not flinch. When she looked up, her eyes met mine without fear. That was how it began, without permission, without foresight. We spoke rarely at first. Words were dangerous. Glances were safer, passing moments in corridors, shared silences during long ceremonies. She learned the rhythm of my steps. I learned the sound of her breath when she laughed quietly at courtly absurdities. In a palace that thrived on performance, what we shared was invisible and therefore precious. My father ruled with patience sharpened by age. He had buried 3 brothers and 1 wife to sit upon the throne. He believed deeply in bloodlines, in purity, in the divine right of succession. The crown, he often said, was not worn. It was inherited like a curse. My brother believed him. I did not. The wound between us was not born of jealousy, as the court so often whispered. It was born of difference. He loved the crown. I feared it. He spoke in certainties. I spoke in questions. Where he saw order, I saw cages lined with velvet. At night, when the palace slept, Elira and I would meet beneath the old West Tower. It was a forgotten place, cracked by time and neglect. We would sit on cold stone and speak of things that could not survive daylight. Dreams, doubts, the possibility of choosing one's own name. She told me once that she feared becoming nothing more than a womb for alliances. I told her I feared becoming a weapon sharpened by my own blood. We laughed softly at our shared doom. It felt intimate. It felt like rebellion. But the palace notices rebellion the way a body notices fever. There was a man who watched us long before we understood the danger. Lord Varek, my father's most trusted advisor. He had served 3 kings and buried twice as many secrets. His loyalty was legend. His smile never reached his eyes. He spoke rarely, but when he did, decisions followed like shadows. He believed in the old laws, in bloodlines unbroken, in power maintained through fear disguised as tradition. To him, I was an anomaly, a prince who asked why. I began to feel his gaze long before I knew its intent, in council chambers, across banquet tables, in the pause before servants were dismissed. His presence pressed against my thoughts like a hand against glass. The first fracture came quietly. My mother fell ill. They said it was the chill of winter, then the fatigue of years. Then they said nothing at all. The physicians spoke in circles. The priests prayed louder than necessary. My father withdrew into ceremony. Grief in him always wore armor. I sat beside her bed as the light faded from her eyes. She took my hand with surprising strength. "Listen," she whispered. "Do not trust what they tell you about who you are." Her breath caught. I leaned closer. "Blood remembers," she said, "even when men lie." Those were her last words. The palace mourned her with grandeur, bells, black cloth, a procession of controlled sorrow. I mourned her alone. After her death, the air changed. My father spoke less to me. My brother spoke more, but his words were careful, measured, as if he were already practicing a language of command I did not wish to learn. Elira noticed the shift before I did. She always did. "They are watching you now," she said one night beneath the tower, "not as a prince, as a question." I wanted to tell her that questions were not dangerous, that truth could not wound if spoken with care. I wanted to believe that love could exist outside the lines drawn by birth. But blood has a way of rising. During a council session meant to discuss border tariffs, Lord Varric spoke my name. It was unexpected. The room stilled. "There are rumors," he said, voice smooth as polished stone. "Questions regarding succession, regarding loyalty, regarding origin." My father's gaze turned to me, heavy, assessing. I felt the truth stir within my chest like something long buried and restless. My mother's voice echoed in memory. "Blood remembers." I said nothing. Not yet. That night, Elira begged me to leave with her, to disappear into lands where names meant less than choices, where love could be quiet and unremarkable. I almost agreed, but dawn came, and with it, duty. And the truth I had carried like a wound began to throb. The war did not begin with swords. It began with a breath held too long. I learned then that duty does not arrive as command. It arrives as erosion. Each morning after my mother's death, something within me was worn thinner. Conversations ended when I entered rooms. Servants bowed deeper, as if apology could mask curiosity. Even Elira's touch, once steady, carried urgency now, as though time itself had turned against us. Love had become a narrowing corridor. My brother summoned me often, not formally, not as heir to spare, as blood speaking to blood. He would pour wine, gesture for me to sit, and speak of the kingdom as if it were already resting on his shoulders. "You are fortunate," he said once, swirling his cup, "to live without the weight of the crown." I studied his face, the familiarity, the shared brow, the same dark eyes, and yet how different they had become. "I do not feel fortunate," I replied. He smiled, but it was thin. "That is because you do not understand sacrifice." Sacrifice, the word tasted bitter. I wondered if Elira would ever be named such by men like him. A necessary loss, a strategic absence. At night, I returned to the West Tower, but the solace it once offered had changed. Elira spoke less of dreams, more of fear. She had heard whispers among the ladies in waiting that her presence near me was being noted, that alliances were being reconsidered. "They will marry me off," she said quietly, "to remind my family of their place." The thought struck me with unexpected violence. Marriage in this court was not union, it was erasure. "Not while I breathe," I said. She reached for my hand. "That is what frightens me, love versus duty." The words had been carved into the stones of the palace long before either of us were born. They were not opposites. They were rivals. The deeper conflict was not between Elira and the crown. It was between who I was and what my blood demanded. My mother's words returned often. Blood remembers. I began to question the stories told about her marriage, about my birth. I noticed the way Lord Varric watched me whenever lineage was discussed, the way my father's gaze sometimes lingered on me with something like regret. Once, in the Royal Archive, I found records sealed beyond my authority, names scratched out, dates altered. It was subtle work, the kind only men like Varric would attempt. I confronted my father. It was reckless. I knew that even as I stood before him, his crown resting beside him like a sleeping beast. "You have questions," he said before I spoke. "Yes. Questions lead to unrest. So does silence." His eyes hardened. "You speak like your mother." I took that as encouragement. "Was she ever unhappy here?" I asked. He turned away. "Happiness is not a measure fit for royalty." "Then what is?" "Continuity." The word settled between us. Heavy, final. "You are my son," he said at last, "in all the ways that matter." I wanted to ask what ways did not. I wanted to demand truth, to tear it from him like a confession, but the room felt suddenly too small, the walls too close. I left without bowing. That night, I told Elira everything, my doubts, the sealed records, the way my father avoided the past as if it might rise up and claim him. She listened, eyes dark with understanding. "They will never let you choose," she said. "Not if your blood threatens the order they worship." "Then what are we?" I asked. She did not answer at once. When she did, her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "We are what must be erased for peace." The next days were marked by pressure disguised as concern, invitations to attend councils, gentle reminders of my position, warnings framed as advice. Lord Varric finally spoke to me alone. We stood in the Eastern Gallery, where portraits of past kings watched from the walls, their eyes dulled by time, but still accusatory. "You are loved," he said softly. "That is your danger." "I'm loyal," I replied. "Loyalty is insufficient when blood itself is unstable." The word struck true. Unstable. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Restraint, silence, distance from the girl. I laughed then, not out of humor, but disbelief. "You fear her?" "I fear what she represents," he said. "Choice." He stepped closer. "Your mother understood that too late." The threat was unspoken, but clear. That night, Elira did not come to the tower, nor the next. On the third day, I found her in the chapel, kneeling alone. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red. "They summoned me," she said. "The queen consort, the matrons, they spoke of duty, of gratitude, of my family's debts." My chest tightened. "What did they ask of you?" She lifted her gaze. "They told me to forget you." I felt something break then, not loudly, internally, a fracture that would never heal cleanly. "I cannot," she added, "but they have already decided." I took her hands. "We can still leave." She shook her head. "If we run, they will call it treason. They will hunt you. They will destroy my family." The palace had prepared for this moment long before I had. It had contingency for love, for defiance, for hope. "I would choose you," I said. She smiled sadly. "That is why you must not." Love, I realized, was not the opposite of duty. It was its most dangerous challenge. In the days that followed, my brother announced his engagement. A union celebrated for its strategic brilliance. The court rejoiced. I watched from the periphery, invisible in plain sight. Elira stood among the ladies, her expression composed. She did not look at me. The kingdom moved forward. Plans were made, borders secured, bloodlines reinforced. And I stood at the center of it all, holding a truth that could unravel everything. I did not yet know that speaking it would mean war, only that remaining silent would mean losing her forever. The council chamber was never meant for honesty. Its walls were too thick, its windows too narrow. Sound did not escape easily, and neither did intent. Men spoke there as if language were a weapon to be polished rather than used. I had attended council since boyhood, always seated behind my brother, always silent, observing, learning the rhythms of power. Acting, I learned, was different from watching. Lord Varric began Act 3 without ceremony. The northern houses hesitate, he said, fingers steepled. They question the stability of succession. My brother leaned forward. On what grounds? Whispers, Varric replied. They spread fastest where truth is thin. His eyes moved to me, deliberate, measured. I felt the pull then, the tightening noose of implication. My presence had become political, not as prince, as problem. My father remained still upon the throne. Age had carved him into something statuesque. His silence was no longer weakness. It was verdict deferred. What do they require? My brother asked. Assurance, Varric said, that blood will remain pure, that legacy will not fracture. I spoke before caution could stop me. And who decides what blood is pure? The chamber shifted, chairs creaked, breaths caught. Varric did not look surprised. He looked pleased. History, he said, law, and men wise enough to protect both. History is written, I said. Law is interpreted. Men are fallible. A murmur followed. I felt it ripple outward like a stone dropped into still water. My father raised a hand. Silence fell. You forget yourself, he said quietly. No, I replied. I remember. That was the moment I crossed from son to threat. After that council, doors closed to me, not visibly, subtly. Invitations ceased, messengers delayed, information arrived incomplete. The palace had not cast me out, it had isolated me. Elira was gone, not vanished, removed. Her family had been summoned back to their lands. Officially, it was a reward, their loyalty recognized. Unofficially, it was exile disguised as grace. She left no letter, no farewell. That mercy, at least, was spared me. I would not have trusted my restraint if she had. Lord Varric came to me that night. He did not knock. You are unraveling years of careful balance, he said, walking freely through my chamber as if it already belonged to him. Balance for whom? I asked. For the realm. For the crown? For you, he corrected, if you knew what was good for you. I stood. Then speak plainly. He studied me for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its softness. There are questions surrounding your mother. My breath caught, but I did not move. Her family, he continued, was never meant to bind itself to the throne. The marriage was convenient, necessary at the time, but inconvenient truths tend to resurface. You mean rumors? I said. I mean records, he replied. Witnesses, blood. The word hung between us. You are suggesting treason, I said. No, Varric said. I am containing it. He stepped closer. If certain truths were spoken aloud, alliances would shatter, houses would revolt, the border lords would seize the moment, war would follow. Or reform, I said. He smiled then, cold, certain. Reform is a fantasy for men who have never held power. I thought of my mother, of Elira, of the sealed archives. You will remain silent, he said. You will withdraw. You will marry as instructed, or you will be remembered as the prince who broke the realm. And if I refuse, then blood will decide. That night, I broke into the archive. It was not difficult. Power teaches complacency. The locks were old, the guards predictable. I found the records Varric feared. My mother's lineage had been altered, her father's name erased, her mother's bloodline traced not to nobility, but to a rival house long thought extinguished. a house whose claim to the throne predated my father's. I understood then. I was not second son by chance. I was contingency. If my brother failed, if the line fractured, I was blood that could claim legitimacy and destroy it in the same breath. That was why Varric watched me. That was why my mother wept when I was born. That was why love had no place in my life. The truth was not just personal. It was political dynamite. I did not sleep. By dawn, I knew what speaking would cost and what silence would ensure. The council reconvened that afternoon. Tensions were already high. Messengers reported unrest along the eastern border, troops gathering, old loyalties shifting. My brother spoke of preparedness, of deterrence, of strength. Varric spoke of unity, of sacrifice. Then my father looked at me. "Do you have anything to add?" he asked. The chamber waited. In that moment, I saw every path close except one. I saw Elira's face as she stood among the ladies, pretending not to know me. I saw my mother's hand clutching mine as she spoke of blood that remembers. I saw Varric's certainty, built on silence and fear. I rose. "Yes," I said, "I do." And as I opened my mouth, the future shifted. War announces itself long before the first blade is drawn. It arrives in the tightening of voices, in messengers who no longer rest, in maps that are unrolled and never rolled back. By the time men speak of peace, they are already counting the dead. The words I spoke in council did not sound like a declaration. They were measured, careful, true. I told them my mother's blood was not what the records claimed. I told them the lineage had been altered by men who feared instability more than corruption. I did not accuse, I revealed. Silence followed. Not shock, recognition. Varric's face did not change. My father's did. My brother stared at me as if seeing a stranger wearing my face. "You would undermine the throne," Varric said calmly, "on the basis of unproven documents." "They are proven," I replied, "sealed by your own hand." The chamber erupted. Voices clashed. Accusations flew like sparks in dry brush. Lords rose from their seats. Alliances shifted in real time. My father stood. The room fell quiet. "You have spoken," he said, "and in doing so, you have wounded the crown." "I have spoken truth," I answered. "There is no difference," he said, "when truth divides." His judgment was swift, too swift. I was stripped of council privilege, confined to my quarters, not imprisoned, contained, a gesture meant to appease those who feared what I represented. It did not work. By nightfall, banners were raised in the east. Houses loyal to my mother's bloodline declared support. Old claims resurfaced. Men who had waited generations now found voice. The war did not begin because I spoke. It began because others had been waiting for someone to do so. Elira's family was among the first to be caught in the shift. Their lands lay between factions. Neutrality was no longer possible. Messengers came and went, each carrying a different demand. I learned this from a servant who still dared to speak to me. "Her father has refused to choose," she whispered. "They call it betrayal." I felt the guilt settle like iron in my chest. Love had not just doomed us, it had placed a blade at her family's throat. Varric came again, this time with soldiers. "You see now," he said, "what truth costs." "I see what silence bought you," I replied. He leaned close. "If you recant, this can still be contained. And if I do not, then you will be named pretender, and pretenders do not live long." That night, the palace shook with the sound of preparation. Armor, horses, orders shouted and repeated. My brother assumed command of the loyalist forces. My father withdrew, citing age and illness. The crown passed, unofficially but undeniably, to the firstborn. I was moved from my chambers to the old West Tower. The irony did not escape me. Elira found me there. I do not know how she slipped past the guards. Perhaps love still had allies in unexpected places. Perhaps the palace, for all its cruelty, was not yet finished testing us. She looked thinner, older. Fear had carved new lines into her face. "This is my fault," she said before I could speak. "No," I replied, "it is mine." "They will kill you," she whispered. "They will try." She took my hands, desperate now. "Then let me stay. If this is the end, let it be together." I wanted to say yes, every part of me did. But war does not honor romance, it consumes it. "If you remain," I said, "you will be used against me, against your family." Her eyes filled, but she nodded. "I know." We did not speak of love then. It was understood. We spoke of roots, of safe passage, of men we could still trust. When she left, she did not look back. By morning, the first skirmishes had been reported. Border forts seized, supply lines cut. The realm fractured along lines long buried but never erased. I was offered command of the rebel forces. I refused. "I did not speak to rule," I said. "I spoke to end a lie." They called that weakness. Perhaps it was. But weakness has its own kind of strength. As armies gathered, I remained in the tower, writing letters that would never be sent. To my brother, to Elira, to a kingdom that no longer knew its own name. The war had begun, and I had become its symbol. The world narrows before it breaks. That was the nature of collapse. It did not arrive with noise at first. It arrived with stillness so complete, it felt artificial. Days passed in which nothing reached me but distant reports and the sound of my own breathing. The tower became both refuge and tomb. Stone walls pressed close, not threatening, but indifferent. I was no longer consulted, not by the rebels who spoke my name like a banner, nor by the loyalists who cursed it. My refusal to lead had left me unclaimed. I existed in the space between causes, too dangerous to free, too symbolic to kill. That limbo was worse than chains. Each morning I asked after Elira. Each morning the answer grew less certain. At first her family was merely surrounded, then taxed, then accused of harboring sympathies. I understood the pattern. I had seen it used against lesser houses before. Pressure until fracture. Fracture until confession. Confession until erasure. I wrote to my brother. The letter was restrained, careful. I appealed not as rival, but as blood. I reminded him of shared childhoods, of lessons learned together, of the cost that would be paid not by kings, but by those whose names would never be recorded. No reply came. Instead, Lord Varric returned. He looked tired now. The certainty that once armored him had thinned, replaced by urgency, sharpened with fear. "You have done enough," he said. "End this." "You could have ended it before it began," I replied. He ignored that. "Your silence now would mean something different. You are no longer exposing truth. You are sustaining chaos." I laughed quietly. "You taught me that truth and chaos are indistinguishable to men like you." His mouth tightened. "Elira's family will not survive this war." The words were not a threat. They were an announcement. Something inside me gave way then, not loudly, not dramatically. It was the sound of a final support beam snapping under weight long endured. "What do you want?" I asked. "Public recantation," Varric said. "A statement declaring your claims misguided, emotionally driven, born of grief. Then the war ends, slowly, manageably. And her family? They will be spared." I closed my eyes. In the darkness, I saw her hands bloodied by thorns, her quiet laughter, her fear. "This is blackmail," I said. "This is governance," he corrected. I asked for time. He gave me until dawn. That night, sleep would not come. Memory replaced it. I saw my mother's face, pale against linen, heard her voice speaking of blood that remembers. I saw Elira walking away without looking back, her spine straight, her heart breaking in silence, so I would not have to hear it. Love demanded sacrifice, duty demanded silence. Both demanded the same thing from me. I understood then why men chose crowns over conscience. Power simplified choice by removing it, but I had already stripped myself of power. All that remained was consequence. At dawn, the bells rang, not for council, for execution. From the tower window, I saw the square fill, not with crowds, but with soldiers. Precision, control, no spectacle. That was Varick's hand, efficient cruelty. A servant came running, face ashen. "They are to be made examples," she whispered. "3 households, including hers." The world did not narrow this time. It shattered. I did not think. I did not weigh outcomes. I acted with the clarity of a man who has already lost everything that made restraint possible. I demanded an audience with my father. They brought me to him as one brings a relic, carefully, reluctantly. He sat alone, crown absent, his age suddenly undeniable. "You have come to yield," he said. "No," I replied. "I have come to beg." The word cost me more than truth ever had. "If you allow this," I said, "you will rule ashes. You will win a kingdom emptied of meaning." He studied me, and for a moment I saw the man he had been before the crown hollowed him. "You spoke knowing this would follow," he said. "I spoke believing you would be better," I answered. He closed his eyes. "I loved your mother." The admission struck me harder than any blow. "I know," I said. "She forced my hand," he continued. "Her bloodline threatened everything we had built. And yet you married her. She made me believe I could change the rules." A bitter smile touched his lips. "Kings are not allowed that luxury." "You are allowed mercy," I said. He shook his head. "Mercy is remembered as weakness. Then let them remember you as human." For a long moment, nothing passed between us but breath. Then he spoke quietly. "If I intervene now, Varick will turn on me, on your brother, on the crown itself." "Then he is the real threat," I said. "Yes," my father replied, "and I created him." The bells outside rang again. Time had run out. I left without blessing. I went to Varick. He was already armored, preparing to ride. When he saw my face, he knew. "You choose annihilation," he said. "I choose truth," I replied, "and love." He nodded once. "Then so be it." I made my choice publicly. Before the square could stain itself with blood, I spoke. I recanted nothing. I added more. Names, dates, proof beyond denial. I named Varick as architect of deception, not to crown myself, but to break the machinery that fed on silence. Chaos followed. The executions were halted, not out of mercy, but necessity. Lines were redrawn again, allegiances scrambled. The war intensified. No longer about bloodline alone, but about survival of the old order itself. Elira's family was spared, but the cost was immediate. I was declared traitor by the crown. My brother signed the order. When I heard, I did not weep. The emotional collapse had already passed. What remained was resolve stripped of illusion. I had chosen, and there would be no return. Hay did not come for me in the night. That was Varick's mistake. He believed fear still governed me, that the weight of my brother's seal, pressed into wax beside the word traitor, would drive me to flee, to bargain, to fracture. Instead, it clarified everything. By morning, the city gates were sealed. Loyalist banners flew beside those of houses that had changed allegiance twice in as many days. The capital no longer belonged to anyone. It was a body in convulsion, rejecting the sickness that had lived in it too long. I moved openly. There was no longer value in secrecy. Men stepped aside when they recognized me. Some bowed, some spat. Most simply watched, measuring whether history was about to pass close enough to wound them. The palace was guarded, but not defended. That too was telling. Inside, I found my brother in the war chamber. Maps covered the table, weighted down by daggers and signet rings. He wore armor beneath his cloak, as if unsure whether this meeting would end in words or blood. "It didn't have to be this way," he said. "No," I replied, "but it was always going to be. You've broken the realm," he said, "for a woman, for a rumor. For the truth," I said, "and you know it." He looked away, just briefly, long enough to betray himself. "You should have stayed silent," he said. "You were safe. Safety built on lies is just a slower death." He turned then, anger finally cracking his composure. "Do you think I didn't know? Do you think I didn't see the records? I accepted them because someone had to. Because ruling means choosing which truths survive. And you chose Varix," I said. "I chose stability. You chose fear." The doors opened behind me. Lord Varric entered without ceremony, fully armed, surrounded by men whose loyalty was purchased, not earned. "This is a family matter," my brother said sharply. Varric smiled. "No, Your Grace, it is an ending." He faced me. "You have outlived your usefulness." "So have you," I replied. He laughed softly. "You mistake noise for power." I stepped forward, placing my hands on the table, over the maps already stained by imagined blood. "You taught this realm to fear instability," I said. "But you forgot something. Fear spreads faster than control." I turned to my brother. "Ask him," I said. "Ask him what happens if I die." Varric's smile tightened. My brother hesitated. "What happens?" "The houses aligned to my mother's bloodline will crown a martyr," I said. "They will claim I was silenced because I was right. The war will no longer be about reform. It will be about revenge, and it will not end in your lifetime." Silence followed, not the quiet of peace, the quiet of calculation. Varric moved first. He drew his blade. The men with him followed. My brother shouted an order. Too late, allegiances fractured in the room itself. Steel rang. Blood struck stone. The war chamber became what it had always been in spirit. I did not fight. That was my final act of defiance. I stood between Varric and my brother. "Enough," I said. Varric's eyes burned. "Step aside." "No." "You would die for him?" "No," I said. "I would die to end you." The blade entered my side before I felt it. Pain followed like fire finding air. I staggered but did not fall. My brother cried out my name. That sound broke something in him. He moved then, not as king, but as brother. He drove his sword through Varric's chest. The old man looked surprised, not by death, by betrayal. He fell without ceremony. The room stilled, stunned by the sudden absence of the hand that had guided it for decades. I collapsed. As blood soaked through my tunic, my brother knelt beside me, hands shaking, armor forgotten. "Stay with me," he said. "Please." I smiled faintly. "You finally sound like yourself." Physicians were summoned. Orders shouted. The war chamber transformed again, this time into a place of frantic preservation. As they carried me away, I saw it in my brother's face. The truth he could no longer escape. The crown had survived, but the cost had been written in blood neither of us could deny. The point of no return had been crossed, not by my words, but by his blade. I did not wake as a prince. I woke as something less defined, a body held together by linen and obligation. Pain was everywhere, but distant, as if it belonged to someone else. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling above me was unfamiliar, lower, plainer. I'd been moved from the palace proper to a guarded chamber meant for the inconveniently alive. They told me I should not have survived. I believed them. The war did not pause for my recovery. If anything, it accelerated. Varric's death created a vacuum more violent than his rule. Men who had hidden behind his authority now acted openly. Some claimed loyalty to the crown, others to reform, many to nothing but opportunity. My brother ruled, but he did not reign. Each decree was contested, each command questioned, Victory on the battlefield meant little when the court itself had become a wound that would not close. He visited me once. He looked older. The armor had been replaced by black robes, but the weight remained. He did not sit. "I have ended the executions," he said, "for now." "For now," I echoed. "The houses aligned to your claim demand recognition," he continued. "They want your name spoken in council. They want legitimacy. And you?" "I want this to end." I studied him, the brother I had loved, the king I did not envy. "It will not end with me," I said, "not alive, not dead." He closed his eyes briefly. "Then tell me what you want." The question stunned me. "What I want," I said slowly, "is for you to rule without ghosts whispering in your ear, without men like Varric shaping truth to fit fear." "That is not an answer," he said. "It is the only one I have." He left without resolution. Elira did not come. At first, I told myself it was for safety, that her absence was proof of wisdom. Then the reports began to reach me, fragmented and reluctant. Her family's lands had been spared occupation, but not consequence. Fields burned, stores seized, a warning delivered without signature. She had taken refuge in a border convent, not for faith, for obscurity. When I heard this, something in me finally went quiet. Loss, I learned, is not loud. It is not the breaking cry or the desperate plea. It is the moment when hope stops arguing back. The war ground on. My name was used less as a banner now, more as a caution. Reformists spoke of me as proof that truth carried a price. Loyalists spoke of me as a destabilizing force neutralized by fate. Both were correct. When I could stand again, I was escorted to the balcony overlooking the city. Smoke still rose in the distance, not from battle, from rebuilding done too quickly, too carelessly. The kingdom was surviving. Barely. My brother sent a final message. "You will be allowed to live, in exile, beyond the western borders. Your name will not be spoken in council again. In return, the houses aligned to you will be granted limited autonomy. The war will end within the year." It was mercy dressed as erasure. I accepted. Not because I was broken, but because I was finished fighting for a place that could only exist by denying itself. On the morning of my departure, I passed through the south garden. The rose trellis had been repaired. New blooms climbed carefully where blood once stained the petals. I touched one thorn and let it prick my skin. Some lessons, I thought, must be remembered in flesh. As I rode out, no crowd gathered. No farewell was offered. That too was deliberate. I was not to become legend. I was to become absence. Behind me, the gates closed. Ahead of me, uncertainty waited without crown or promise. The consequences had settled. The cost had been paid. All that remained was meaning. Exile is quieter than I imagined. Not kinder, just quieter. Beyond the western borders, the land forgets quickly. Names mean less. Bloodlines dissolve into labor and weather. Men are known by the weight they carry and the promises they keep, not by the sigils once stamped into wax. At first, the simplicity felt like punishment. Then, it began to feel like relief. I lived under another name. Chosen, not inherited. It never quite fit, but it did not wound me either. Each morning, I woke without listening for bells or footsteps outside my door. Each night, I slept without rehearsing what truths I might be forced to swallow the next day. The war ended, as wars do, not with justice, with exhaustion. Borders were redrawn slightly, enough to satisfy pride without inviting another generation of bloodshed. My brother remained king. History would call his reign stabilizing, necessary. They would not write of the cost paid in private rooms or of the man who bled so that others could compromise. They would not write of Elira. I heard of her once more. A traveler spoke of a woman at the border convent who tended the wounded without asking which banner they served. She did not take vows. She did not leave. She simply remained, as if waiting for a world that no longer required her sacrifice. I did not go to her. That truth was the hardest to accept. Love, I learned, does not always mean reunion. Sometimes it means preservation. Sometimes it means allowing what was pure to remain untouched by what came after. If I had gone to her, I would have brought shadows with me. Even in exile, blood remembers. So I let her live without my name pressed against her future like a brand. Years passed. The wound in my side healed into a scar that pulled tight in cold weather. It reminded me that survival is not absolution. That choice leaves marks even when it saves lives. I worked the land. I listened more than I spoke. I learned what it meant to be unimportant. And in that unimportance, I found clarity. Power had never been the crown. It had been the lie that silence was safety. One winter evening, as the sun fell low and red across the fields, I understood what my legacy would be. Not rebellion, not reform, not even truth in the way men celebrate it. My legacy would be fracture, a single irreversible crack in the idea that blood alone could justify rule, that stability was worth any cost, that love was expendable. They would seal the records again. They would teach their heirs caution. But somewhere in every council chamber the question would remain, unspoken but alive. What if he was right? The war began when I spoke the truth. But the kingdom survived because it could never again pretend the truth had not been spoken. That is enough for a man without a crown, for a love that could not be saved, for a name that no longer needs to be remembered.